it's kind of great to think about this as a way to incentivize new donors to come into a nonprofit, because somebody who might not have known about a particular nonprofit, but they're excited about the prize, can make a donation here. And now the nonprofit has an opportunity to reach back out to that person and really inform them about their mission.
You're listening to Relish This, the Purpose Marketing Podcast. Here's your host, Stu Swineford.
Hey everybody, Stu here. My guest today is Annie Tukman, and she is the sales director at TapCat. And TapCat is this amazing organization that helps nonprofits figure out how to run a sweepstakes and facilitates that action. So it really creates opportunities for donation, list building, and just overall engagement. It's a really great program. I'm sure you've heard me talk about it before on the show. Annie and I talked about all things TapCat today, and really one of the things that I think every nonprofit should know is that TapCat is there for them if they want to start trying to drive donations and build their list. It's just a jam-packed episode full of great insights and information. We had a lot of fun. I hope you enjoy it. Here we go. Annie, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Stu. Thanks for having me on your podcast.
Oh, it is my pleasure. We are recording this the day after Memorial Day in 2021, and this episode is going to air in, I think, September, or we'll figure it out. We'll air it.
Okay.
But I really appreciate you taking the time to chat with me today. I'm really excited to learn about all the great things you're doing over at TapCat. I know that we've been friends with you guys for quite a while now, but I'm excited to hear more about your story and how things are going over there.
Yeah. Oh, and happy to be here and share. We've got a lot of great successes to talk about, and some tools and tips to share with your audience as well.
Yeah, great. I'm really excited. So why don't we start off by you telling our audience a little bit more about what TapCat is and what you guys do for nonprofits?
Yeah, so TapCat is an online, we're a software company, and we are running fundraising sweepstakes for nonprofits. So I think, before I tell you more about what we're doing, I want to stop for a second and just talk about sweepstakes, because a lot of the times in the nonprofit world, sweepstakes and raffles get interchanged when they are actually two really different types of contests. And it's important that we're labeling them the right way, because raffles are considered gambling. Mm-hmm. So raffles are regulated at a state level, which means every state's going to have different rules on how they want raffles run in their state, because they're gambling. And some states, I think it's 8 or 9 right now, don't even allow raffles. So they are illegal in some states.
So what's the difference between a raffle and a sweepstakes, just so that people can wrap their arms around it?
Yeah. So a sweepstakes has a no purchase necessary to enter into the contest. So that's different than a raffle, because with a raffle, every single person that enters the contest is going to be buying a ticket.
Gotcha.
And so sweepstakes have this alternative method of entry for somebody to enter into the contest. And they have people who are entering with a donation. So because of that, because there's a no purchase necessary to enter, these sweepstakes contests are legal in all 50 states. You can cross state lines with them, which is really important when you get to marketing a campaign. Mm-hmm. And there's cash flow throughout the campaign. So with a raffle, you have to segregate funds. You have to hold on to them until the end of a campaign. With a sweepstakes, the funds that are coming into a contest are readily available for a nonprofit's use.
That's great. I know you mentioned, and this is kind of one of the unique things about the TapCat model, is that it's also driving donations and trying to get people to participate in the sweepstakes based upon a level of donation that has a ticket equivalent component to it. Is that still the current model?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we have the free entry method, but we see 98 to 99% of folks are purchasing tickets. So it's a small pot. That's 1 to 2% of the tickets in the contest are free.
Okay.
So it's really, really small. And there's so many benefits to a sweepstakes that you get with this little change, this little difference between the sweepstakes and the raffle.
Oh, that's great. Do, are the donations still tax deductible for people?
We are not CPAs, so we recommend for our nonprofits that we take the stance that we're going to give your donor everything they need to take to their accountant, to their tax accountant, and their tax accountant can determine whether or not that donation is tax deductible or not.
Okay, so it may be different in different states is kind of what I'm hearing there.
Yeah, and I think it can be different for different tax situations as well.
Oh, okay, cool. Well, it's a really cool model. So essentially, people set up a campaign and then solicit donations to participate in that sweepstakes.
Yeah, and our nonprofits are giving away some really incredible prizes. It's really unfortunate that we at TapCat can't enter to win some of these because they are so cool. We're drooling over a lot of them. Right now, we've got Ronald McDonald House in Denver. They're giving away a conversion van. Same with Junior Achievement in Northern Indiana. They're doing a conversion van that looks amazing. And we got Paradox Sports here in Colorado giving away a teardrop trailer, some great cars, great experiences. So all of these prizes are really, really exciting and really fun for donors, fun for us too.
Yeah, absolutely. It is too bad you guys can't participate because some of those prizes are amazing. I don't want to get too far ahead of things, and certainly feel free to back us up. But what are the types of prizes that you've seen work really well?
We've seen, we've seen experiences do well. We've seen trips do well on here, cars. We had Fargo Air Museum in North Dakota just do a side-by-side, and they blew it out of the park. I mean, they did such a great job on that campaign. And so it's really, it's anything that's really desirable for donors. What
Okay.
we've seen that hasn't worked are things that are kind of everyday. Like for some reason we haven't seen trucks do really well.
Hmm.
And we
Okay.
haven't seen, I think if any development director who's listening to this and they can probably look behind them and see all the baskets from last year's silent auction that didn't sell, those aren't going to do well in a campaign like this either. So
Gotcha.
yeah,
So
really exciting.
something different and unique, and kind of customized seems to be the ticket.
Yeah, I would say along those lines, something that is unique, but we've also done trips to Napa Valley that have done really well. So
Okay.
yeah, just something to get interest from donors.
Yeah, absolutely. So we like to talk about the not only the kind of engage phase, but the inspire phase of an audience participation. Do you have any data on ongoing participation after sweepstakes in terms of getting new donors and keeping them in the fold, or do you have enough data to be able to speak about that?
Yeah, we do. I think a really good example is the Shelby American Collection Car Museum in Boulder, Colorado. They are on their sixth sweepstakes with us, and every year they give away a similar prize. So they'll do a new Shelby Mustang,
Okay.
and they are seeing a really high percentage of folks who are donating into the contest one year are also donating the next year. And what's kind of cool is not only are we seeing, we're not seeing a lot of donor fatigue inside these contests, but we're also seeing that through the duration of one single sweepstakes campaign, 14 to 22% of folks will donate multiple times just in that one campaign.
Oh, that's great. It's really interesting. And then the nonprofits own all of the data from the campaigns themselves, right? So they can continue to reach out to those donors throughout the year, even if a campaign isn't running after the fact. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. I'm going to jump back to the Shelby American Collection because I know with them, when they started off their first sweepstakes, they had 800 donors on their donor list. So that means, and I mean that by they had 800 donors in their email database.
Okay.
definitely did not mean for them that they had 800 active donors. That
Right.
was probably 10 of them were actually active donors. So throughout the years, they have built that list year after year, and now they have about 40,000 people in just
Whoa,
6 years
that's
on
amazing.
that list. Yeah, really incredible. And so when they do an e-blast now out to that base, they'll see between $40,000 and $60,000 come in for their campaigns.
Okay, for their sweepstakes campaign.
Yes. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's really cool. That list building component is fascinating. Are those people? Do they tend to be active other times of the year? Or are they pretty much sweepstakes type donors at this point?
The museum, that museum is kind of a special case because almost their entire budget is run on these campaigns now.
Okay.
So they run them annually, and they run them for about 11 to 12 months.
Okay.
So most of the people who are on that list are donating through that campaign back into the museum.
Okay. Great. And I'm assuming that as they've run more campaigns, their campaigns have been more successful. Can you speak to the growth? I think you said you've run 5 campaigns thus far.
They're on their 6th campaign.
Okay.
So their first one started off at about 235,000 that they raised gross donations.
Okay.
Then it went to 357, then 435, I believe, 533, and then last year in 2020 they raised 1.3 million.
Whoa.
Yeah, so
That's some amazing growth. That is
It's
outstanding.
Yeah, it's incredible. It's really inspiring to see what they've accomplished in their sweepstakes. I mean,
Yeah.
their nonprofit was, I know it's okay with them if I share this, but their nonprofit was kind of underwater because they are a car museum that was focused around one man. For all of you that have seen Ford versus Ferrari, they're about Shelby Cobras and GT40s. So when Carroll Shelby passed away, they used to have a big gala where he would attend, and it would bring in, a couple, maybe $50,000 or $60,000, which would be barely their operating expenses for the year and keep them going.
Wow.
And then when he passed, they needed a new way to raise funds for that museum.
Right. Well, maybe you can get Matt Damon and Christian Bale to come in next year.
Yeah, that would be great. But just to talk about data for a minute here, all of our sweepstakes, our nonprofits own the data that are coming in. And so just like the Shelby American Collection, our nonprofits that are seeing the most success are the nonprofits that are using that data that's coming in each year and running a campaign with a similar prize, remarketing to the folks that have already donated, and plus doing some additional marketing on top of that to bring in more funds to have these campaigns grow.
Right.
So when somebody does make a donation on the platform, that data, the donors' data is going into the nonprofit's database.
Okay.
And they have access to that at any time.
Oh, that's great. So it's a real list building opportunity as well as a donation tool. So looking at those as kind of the core, two of the core benefits that come out of running a TapCat campaign. For most nonprofits, I would say that they're trying to build both of those items.
Yeah, it's really neat, and it's kind of great to think about this as a way to incentivize new donors to come into a nonprofit, because somebody who might not have known about a particular nonprofit, but they're excited about the prize, can make a donation here, and now the nonprofit has an opportunity to reach back out to that person and really inform them about their mission.
Right. One of the things we talk about a lot, particularly on donation pages, is really reinforcing the value proposition, and that being this idea of why should a donor give to this particular nonprofit or a different nonprofit or no one at all, and how to really frame that statement. And so I would imagine that the prize itself is certainly a huge draw, but nonprofits in the system, in the TapCat system, can really reinforce all the good that they're doing and how this donation, on top of the opportunity to win a prize, is going to make their donors feel. And so weaving that kind of narrative into the structure of that sweepstakes is probably a valuable opportunity to kind of get that mission out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's so important to us too. We have a section on each campaign page where a donor can come on and they can learn about that nonprofit and, a couple paragraphs, and they have the opportunity to go to their website and learn even more about the nonprofit and an opportunity to contact them.
Oh, that's great. How much on average do nonprofits need to invest in TapCat in terms of like what is it? What does TapCat cost and what is the usual marketing budget for a campaign?
Yeah, that's the really cool thing about these sweepstakes. One thing that I really love about this type of fundraising is that there's no risk to a nonprofit. So there's no upfront cost. There's no fees associated with setting up a campaign site. So if a nonprofit sets up a site and for whatever reason they don't raise any money, they're not out any money either. So we charge a transaction rate for a nonprofit to run a campaign with us. And that is a 10% transaction rate. And how that works is as soon as somebody makes a donation, that gets pulled out. We use Stripe as our payment processor, so their processing fees get pulled out, and then the rest goes into the nonprofit's account. So funds in these campaigns, like I mentioned in the beginning of our conversation, they are readily available for a nonprofit's use. So there's not, we're not escrowing any funds. There's cash in their account so that they can be, if they have some overhead they need to cover, if they want to put money back into the campaign to do some outside advertising, they can do that. Those funds are there for the nonprofit.
And do you see a typical marketing spend that you recommend for a campaign based on prize size or potentially on how much they're attempting to raise?
Yeah, that's a great question, Stu. And I think it's really dependent on the nonprofit and what the prize is. Very roughly, I can tell you, 20 to 25% of gross expected raise can be sometimes appropriate for a nonprofit on their first campaign to expect to spend towards marketing expenses.
That's a great number to budget for.
Yeah.
So walk a nonprofit, walk someone through the decision-making process in terms of the things they need to kind of wrap their arms around and budget for and then maybe even do to create the best opportunity for a successful campaign.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, typically when I start working with a nonprofit, we'll talk first about timing. Because I know, a lot of nonprofits, as we're getting out of COVID and back into events, a lot of nonprofits are wanting to host events. And it's so fun to draw the winner of a sweepstakes at an event.
Oh, yeah.
Because everybody there, a lot of people will have participated. It's another fun thing to do at an event. Sometimes that timing doesn't always work out. So also appropriate to launch at an event if that's how it looks best for a nonprofit. But I'm saying events, we have nonprofits who don't run any events and who run these sweepstakes really successfully. So there's a couple options there, but I think timing is the first thing to look at and to also think about how much money does the nonprofit want to raise?
Okay.
Because that can also, if they just need to raise $10,000, well, they might be able to do that in 2 months with a particular prize. And we have a nonprofit, the New Jersey Audubon, and they run these 10-day contests with us a couple times a year, and they raise about $10,000, so just a little bit under in 10 days. So,
oh, that's great.
Yeah, really, really fun to do. And
are there prizes like spotting scopes and things like that, or what are their typical sweepstakes prizes on a short campaign like that?
Yeah, that's exactly right. They do spotting scopes, and they do this Cape May festival, and so they'll do a trip out to Cape May.
Oh, fun!
Yeah. It looks like I've only seen the pictures, but it looks amazing.
And then what are the next steps in terms of getting a campaign off the ground?
Yeah. So once a nonprofit has determined, has an idea around timing, has an idea around how much they want to raise, of course, the next thing to look at is prizes. And prizes are dependent on a couple different things. Prizes don't always correlate with the nonprofit's mission. So we have some nonprofits who give away cars who aren't doing anything related to cars. And we have some nonprofits who want to tie prizes in to their mission in different ways. So the really amazing thing about prizes too, I'm getting so excited about sweepstakes. The great thing about prizes is that unless they are donated, they are on consignment.
Okay.
So that means another reason why these campaigns are no risk to a nonprofit is they are not purchasing the prize until the end of a campaign, only if they hit the minimum that they want to raise.
Oh, interesting. So if you had let's say an environmental or a outdoor nonprofit, for example, and you wanted to give away, I know everyone's all excited about Sprinter vans and Sprinter van conversions right now. And so if you wanted to give away that prize, you wouldn't have to come up with the 100,000 or whatever that particular prize might cost up front. You can actually just buy that on commission. And then as soon as you get to the raise that you were looking for, then you put that order in to purchase the prize itself. Is that how that works?
Yes, that's exactly right. And Sprinter vans are kind of a special, I think they're kind of they've got a special clause to them because right now they're in such high demand that a lot of these conversion companies are selling build spots.
Okay.
And those build spots can sometimes be like a year or a year and a half away.
Right.
So it's a good time if a nonprofit is thinking about doing a conversion van to find a company that they want to work with. Some of these companies will, hold a build spot for them. Some of them want a little bit of a deposit, which might just be 5,000, 5,000 or something small like that. So not huge. So that if a nonprofit runs their campaign for a year, then at the end of the year, then the build spot's maybe only 3 months away. So it's not as bad.
Right.
As waiting a year and a half for a build spot. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh, our other prizes like the side-by-sides and some of the cars, those are still on consignment and those will be ready for a donor at the end of the campaign.
Okay.
So when they win the prize, they're going to go pick up the prize and it'll be a little bit more immediate than getting a conversion van.
Gotcha. Well, I picked the toughest category apparently. So in terms of the nonprofit's responsibility after the fact, are there taxes involved in this process that people need to be aware of, or are the nonprofits potentially putting any of their donors into any sort of strange situations in terms of liability with winning particularly a larger prize?
Yeah. So how that works is, and this is true for a raffle as well, if a prize is over $5,000, then a donor is responsible for paying the taxes unless the nonprofit chooses to cover the taxes.
Okay.
And taxes are 24% of the fair market value of a prize.
Okay.
So as you can imagine, $100,000 conversion van, that can be pretty high for some people, if the nonprofit chooses not to cover that. So there's always a cash alternative in case somebody wins the prize and they can't pay the taxes on it, or they choose not to pay the taxes on it, then they can get a great cash prize alternative instead.
Okay. And is the cash prize usually the equivalent amount, or is it a lesser amount? How do people usually handle that?
Yeah, it's usually a little bit less than the fair market value of the prize.
Okay. Do any nonprofits weave a cash component into the prize itself to help cover the tax burden?
Yeah, some of them do. The Shelby American Collection is one of those. So they are throwing in $25,000 on top of the car, because believe it or not, a Shelby Mustang is $100,000 car, the new ones.
Okay.
So, which I can believe. I mean, it's a beautiful car. It's really stunning. and it's 760 horsepower. I don't know what I would do with that. But that so the winner will get the taxes on top of that cash for the taxes.
Okay. So there are a couple different ways to handle that. What happens if a sweepstakes doesn't go as well as one had hoped, and they don't raise enough to either cover the cost of the of the prize itself, or even maybe they don't raise enough based upon what they were hoping to raise?
Yeah. So if a nonprofit, so all nonprofits that we work with, we recommend setting a minimum on the campaign for just this reason. So if they don't raise enough money to cover the cost of the prize, then and then some. So typically we set the minimum on a prize on a campaign roughly 2 times the cost of the prize.
Okay.
So if they don't reach that minimum, then the gross donation, the net donations will be split 50-50 with the nonprofit and with the winner.
Okay, so if they had $100,000 prize, you'd set the minimum at $200,000, for example, and let's say they only raised $100,000, then the nonprofit would take 50, and the winner would take 50.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
So there's always a winner in these contests. There's never a situation where everybody's getting a refund. There's always going to be a winner, and that winner is going to get a cash prize instead. And we've had that happen. I mean, that's happened in our 5 years of being in business, and we've only heard good things from the winners. They're excited to get a check, and they didn't get a prize, but they got the prize that was advertised, but they did get a check.
Okay, that's really interesting. Are there any categories of nonprofits that you've seen do really well in this, or any that you usually caution to stay away from this type of an engagement, or does it all really just sort of depend on the prize?
I think there's so many factors in here, because we've seen, we had a nonprofit, Traveling Stories, run a campaign with us, and they have one staff member, one executive director, and they raised $20,000 on their campaign, which was really exciting for them. So we've seen nonprofits that are that are small like that do really well. And then we've seen large nonprofits. We're running a campaign right now for JDRF, and it's just taken off. So, it really it's not always about the prize. It's not always about the size of the nonprofit. I think sometimes it can be really important that when a nonprofit comes to us and they want to run a campaign, that they have the staff time. They have somebody who's going to stay on this and do the promotion and send out the emails. It's not something that does take. It's not a full-time job for a staff member. This isn't a 40-hour-a-week campaign.
Right.
But I would recommend that a nonprofit, when they look at doing this, that they can dedicate a couple hours a week from a staff member to dedicate to putting towards their sweepstakes campaign.
And what are those activities typically? Is it running Google ad campaigns, or just posting to social media, or is there some engagement component that you've seen work really well once people actually have taken that step to donate?
Yeah, the marketing side for the nonprofit does look like social media posts. It looks like sending out emails to their base or connecting with sponsors. It looks like calling you guys at Relish and getting some help as well on putting together an email campaign, or doing some Facebook ads. So there is, it's just like any fundraising campaign. It's a little bit of everything that needs to be going on to have a successful sweepstakes.
Gotcha. Do you have any, tie-ins between TapCat and like content or customer relations management tools, CRMs, where when people are getting active in a campaign, you can put them into, an email automation?
We have on the back end dashboard that a nonprofit will have access to in their sweepstakes. They'll be able to download their donor data as a CSV. So whichever CRM they're using out there, they can throw that data right into that CRM and start marketing to them.
Oh, that's great. And that they can do that as frequently as they prefer during the course of that campaign.
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, that's great. So there's no delays on access to data or access to funds. So people can
Yeah.
just jump right in and use those items how they see fit.
Yeah, as soon as somebody makes a donation, they're going to be in that data set. So the nonprofit will have the ability to shoot that out to shoot them an email or, whatever they'd like to do.
That's great. So for a nonprofit considering this, it sounds like it's pretty straightforward to get going. Do they just need to contact TapCat and ask more questions, or what's the typical onboarding process look like?
Yeah. So right now, they can reach right out to me, and I'd love to chat with them and see if it would make sense for them to run a campaign right now. And onboarding right now it's pretty quick, so they got to buckle their seatbelts and get ready for a campaign ride. As soon as we get a site up, which just takes us a day or two, once we have all the information we need from the nonprofit, they'll be ready to start fundraising.
Oh, that's
And
great.
so it's a really quick turnaround. And what we recommend is that a nonprofit has a marketing plan in place and ready to go right when we hit the live button on the sweepstakes, so that they are raising funds right off the bat.
So what do you recommend as part of that marketing campaign?
Yeah, marketing can be prize dependent, and it can be, it's really prize dependent. We offer a lot of guidance when it does come to marketing, dependent on the prize that a nonprofit is choosing to run with. So, TapCat does negotiate rates with third parties on advertising.
Okay.
Which looks like we've got some organization or some businesses that can help a nonprofit with Facebook ads. We've got different publications that nonprofits can rent lists from, or online blogs that they can utilize space on there that has been successful for other nonprofits. So TapCat negotiates those rates, and then we pass that along to our customers, depending on
Oh,
which prize they have and where it would be appropriate to market that prize.
gotcha. That's great. So if they're running a car sweepstakes, you have potentially access to some lists that might be valuable for them to send to, of people who might be interested in joining a sweepstakes for a car.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
That's perfect. I know that Google for nonprofits has Google Grants, and they, if you qualify, can release some funds for advertising. What's your take on that? Or are there any pitfalls or things that nonprofits need to be aware of if they're hoping to use Google Grants money?
Yeah, one of the things that we recommend is that a nonprofit puts their sweepstakes on the homepage of their nonprofit.
Okay.
And that's for transparency on these campaigns, and any traffic that they're getting on their website, somebody can come on and see that sweepstakes right away. So with the Google ad grants, as you know, Stu, they can only go straight to a nonprofit's URL.
Okay.
And
Yep.
since we host the sweepstakes at tapcat.com, the URL isn't going to look like the URL that the nonprofit hosts their main website on.
Okay.
So we've
Gotcha.
seen nonprofits have a lot of success using those grants that direct to the page. It's 2 clicks. A donor will see that ad, click to their website, and then be able to click to their campaign page.
Okay. That's great. Do you feel like, well, I'm just curious about how that whole Google Grants process works. Are people typically running ads that are just very sweepstakes oriented? Are they, is it win a car, or what are the types of display ads or ads that people are running? Do you know what's been successful?
Oh, shoot. That's not directly my area, but if a
That's
nonprofit
fine.
is interested, they can contact me, and I'll find out and share some ads that are working for our other nonprofits.
Oh, that's great. That actually, I just had an idea, and I don't know if you may already have thought of this or do it already, but have you started a Facebook group or anything like that for TapCat sweepstakes nonprofits, so that people can bounce ideas around and hear what's worked in the past or what's working for nonprofits running campaigns?
Oh, that's a great idea. Right now we are working on a marketing tutorial so we can share with send that out to our nonprofits so that they have everything they need to successfully market their campaign. And through that, we were going to share some stuff that was working for other nonprofits that they could see. How do I send out an email? How do I create a 3x5 postcard to give out at my events, and
Right.
different how-tos through that.
Yeah, it seems like that might be a really interesting way to start to build community around TapCat, and enable some of these people who are coming in, because I'm sure the first couple of years of campaigns that they run will be a little less successful than potentially their third and fourth and fifth year sweepstakes. But just building that community and facilitating those interactions might be an interesting way for people to not only kind of engage in the nonprofit community, but also in this new TapCat community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Well, I'm just remembering that this will be out in September. So by September, we'll definitely have the marketing tutorial ready for
That sounds awesome.
for our nonprofits.
Yeah, I'd say the biggest question marks is I've talked with people on the show about TapCat in the past, and certainly, we're always having conversations over here at Relish with potential nonprofit partners about things that might work for them. And one of the things that we've noticed or that we've recommended is if nonprofits have access to a corporate partner or sponsor that is really well aligned with their mission, or even not, potentially, depending upon what the prize is, that can be a really great asset to bring to the table when considering a TapCat campaign. So, like you mentioned, the Shelby American Museum had a very small, decent mailing list, but certainly not 40,000 when they started. And so one of the questions or the concerns that a lot of the people that I speak with have is, well, what if my list is really small? And so one of the things that we start to look for are potential corporate sponsor type opportunities to leverage either that marketing department within that corporate partner or access to their mailing list. So, for example, if you're, I know that you mentioned Paradox Sports is running a campaign. One of the things that we spoke with Paradox about was the fact that they have access to a lot of really big corporate sponsors like North Face and people like that. And so leveraging that asset can be a really valuable component to bring to a TapCat sweepstakes.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was going to be one of my tips for the day, is that I think sometimes nonprofits forget, or some of the nonprofits I talk to will forget about or not think of this as including some of their sponsors who might be able to help them promote the campaign. And they might even have a sponsor, especially during COVID, who can't give financially this year, but they can give marketing dollars. They can give access. They can do an email blast out to their base. And that can look so many different ways. I mean, it could even be a law firm that they could send that out to their base through their email.
Mm-hmm.
Or it could be, I think a good example of this is ARI here in Colorado, the American Institute for Avalanche Research and Education. They teamed up with, they did a sweepstakes with Climb, and they did a sweepstakes with Arctic Cat. And so both of those companies are manufacturing snowmobiles and sleds.
Right.
I still haven't figured out the difference between a snowmobile and a sled. I think I should know that. But so the snowmobile that they did recently with Arctic Cat raised $214,000, and that was in 3 months. That was in a really short period.
Wow.
And that was getting, Arctic Cat and Climb both really supported ARI in these two campaigns that they did. And the last one with Arctic Cat that raised $214,000. They did so much promotion for him. I mean, it's so amazing to see a for-profit that has a huge base like this
Right.
that has the ability, that has the marketing team, to promote one of these campaigns. It's just incredible to see the results that can happen through that.
Were there any takeaways from how they approached that marketing that other nonprofits might be able to benefit from? Were there any things that just surprised you about how they handled the outreach?
Yeah, they were so consistent. They were so creative. They were always they did a bunch of really great videos. They
Okay.
did emails. They had it on their website, but it was really the consistency that I saw that I think was the most successful for this.
Yeah, that consistency tends to be one of those things that if you can nail that, you can really start to make some big strides just by committing to, a specific cadence that's, first of all, achievable. And then if you're knocking it out of the park, you can up that game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So do you remember if Climb or Arctic gave the nonprofit the prizes as well, or were they mostly on board just from a marketing standpoint?
That's a good question that I actually don't know the answer to that. I do think these snowmobiles, if they did purchase them or if they donated them, I'm not 100% sure, but I heard, and I am, I'm not sure if this is 100% true. I think they're about $10,000 to $12,000 prize. So that's another good example of something that's really desirable. It's not, it's not crazy expensive like a car. And it raised, $214,000 for a $10,000 prize.
Yeah, that's incredible. I think that taking the time to think about what corporate sponsors you have and what they might be able to bring to the table. And it's not always about asking for product, although that certainly could be helpful. I think getting a prize donated would be amazing. However, if you can simply tap into these marketing teams and then the lists and the opportunity to spread that word, that's that's an incredible way to leverage those partnerships.
Yeah, absolutely. And I hear from not businesses that are supplying some kind of some kind of product that they do get asked all the time for donations from nonprofits.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a little bit of a different way to approach one of these for-profit businesses that isn't an ask for a donation. It's a way for the business to promote the good culture and the work that they're doing as a business to help local nonprofits or help nonprofits in the country to raise funds.
Yeah, I just thought of something interesting. I'm on the board of the Nederland Area Trails Organization, and I know we've been talking with you for a while about potentially running a campaign because we'd actually like to get a snow sled up here to help groom trails during the winter for Nordic skiing. And you're spot on. The machines we're looking at are in that $12,000 to $15,000 range, so they are not inexpensive, but they certainly aren't a $100,000 Shelby.
Yeah.
But one of the things that would be interesting is if even if the nonprofit was buying a prize, for example, from a company, just asking that company to market for the, as part of buying the prize, go ahead and leverage that email list and go ahead and try and get the word out so that you can make sure that you reach your minimums and actually go through with the purchase. That might be an interesting way to kind of sweeten the deal on a prize that a nonprofit was going to have to secure themselves.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. I mean, that business gets to turn around and sell a product.
Yeah. So if for example, one of the ideas that we had was why don't we sweepstakes off a snow machine, a snowmobile, and we'll just buy two, and so we could probably get a price break because we're buying two, and then put one in the sweepstakes and keep the other one. So, but taking it one step further and either asking wherever we were contracting with to buy the actual equipment, have them promote the sweepstakes as well.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. It never hurts to ask.
Yeah, the answer is always no if you don't ask.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
So are there any other pitfalls or exciting tips that you would have for a nonprofit that we haven't chatted about already that that you'd like to share?
Yeah, I think another thing I might have touched on a little bit earlier, but really where we see the most success is when nonprofits are duplicating these campaigns on an annual or semi-annual basis. So if they are doing a snowmobile one year, doing a snowmobile the next year, I mean, that they're going to see incredible results. And that's what we see across the board with all of our sweepstakes.
Do you see opportunities to escalate? So, for example, if a nonprofit was sort of wanting to dip their toes in the TapCat pool, as it were, or had some trepidation about how things were going to run, have you seen success in a smaller campaign the first year, and then going, oh, this actually works really well, and jumping in to a larger campaign the following year? Or do they mostly succeed if you're really trying to get into very similar prize types year after year?
Yeah, my advice would be to try and stay inside of a category. So sometimes, a nonprofit might not hit their minimum the first year, which is okay. They're still walking away with a substantial amount of cash.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next year they hit it and they reach the minimum. They're giving away a prize and walking away with even more cash. So, I'm always happy to talk to a nonprofit about a strategy around this because it can look different for different organizations.
Right. And it seems like, in theory, or at least the way that we would kind of try to approach this, that it's probably beneficial from a audience building standpoint to try and stay in your category. So if you're, if for example, Netherland Area Trails Organization might want to stick in that kind of outdoor spaces in terms of the prize. So maybe the first year we could do a small trailer, and then the second year we could do a bigger trailer, and then third year do, a Sprinter van or something like that. But at least you're sort of staying in that same category, because the list that you're building is going to be, interested in either your organization or the sweepstakes, or ideally both. And so as long as you're not, jumping around from, some sort of, I don't know, opera tickets one year and then a airplane boat ride the next year or whatever. Like, as long as you're staying in that same sort of zone, you're able to kind of piggyback on the progress that you've made year over year, because the audience should be relatively homogenous, I guess.
Yeah. I think that's a good way to put it, because we don't want to see a really small nonprofit try and take on $150,000, Sprinter van the first year. And,
right.
We don't want to see somebody not do well. So we probably would recommend a smaller trailer to start off with.
What are some of the more unique prizes you've seen come through the TapCat system?
Oh, I've got a good one for you. And maybe parents totally understand this. I don't have children, so it made me chuckle when I saw this. But we had a school give away a parking spot in their sweepstakes.
That's amazing. For just like basketball games and stuff, or what?
For like drop off, for just
that's awesome.
Drop off and pick up.
How much money did they raise?
I think they raised about $10,000 or $12,000 on that.
That's fantastic. Oh, really cool. So just super thinking outside of the box on that one.
Yeah, but again,
that's
to the desirability. I mean, I remember what it was like when trying to get dropped off at school, and it's chaos. It's total chaos. So to have that parking spot, especially if you can get a parking spot for $25-$50 for the whole year, that's pretty incredible.
That is really awesome. It's interesting because it comes back down to understanding your target audience, and if you're running a sweepstakes, or if you're trying to just attract an audience to become a donor, or even a volunteer, really understanding the challenges that they're facing and the hardships that they're wanting to overcome, or those pain points that they're trying to alleviate.
Mm-hmm.
If you can come at it from that perspective, where you become a solutions provider for that particular challenge, then you've done a lot of the work already.
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting to think about and put that into perspective. And that might be some additional work up front that nonprofits can do when they're really trying to select a prize. Is think about the motivations of the audience that you're trying to reach, and come up with something that's going to appeal to those challenges, or the resolutions of those challenges, at least.
That's a really great point, because I do think it's really important at the beginning of a campaign to look at who they want to target. And we do have nonprofits coming to us and saying their donor base is getting older, they're aging out, they're not sure what they're going to do or how to connect with the younger demographic. And, I don't want to just say the conversion van's the way to go for everything, but
Sure.
What a great way to connect with a younger audience and group of donors than a conversion van or something outdoorsy and fun, or even, Disney World. There's just so many options when it comes to that.
Right. Any other fun sweepstakes prizes that have come through that you can think of, or did the parking spot blow everybody else out of the water?
The parking spot was really one of a kind. I don't think we had anything quite like that.
That's great. Are people offering multiple prizes? Like, take the Shelby American Collection Museum, for example. Is there just a single prize, or are there runner-up type prizes that are offered?
Yeah, on occasion we'll have a runner-up prize. We haven't seen in our data that drives a campaign, that gets folks to donate more. So we do recommend having one really exciting prize. It makes marketing so much easier. It's really hard to tell the story of 3 different prizes or 2 different prizes through a marketing campaign.
That makes sense.
It makes it really, it can just get too much, instead of just having one clear, exciting, desirable prize.
Yeah, that I can see from a marketing standpoint that's how that could be. Have you gotten repeat donors within a single sweepstakes by adding to the prize?
Yeah, we actually have. We've had a lot of success when a nonprofit will put up a prize. And actually, Paradox Sports is a good example of this, because they have their trailer. Yes, I'm right about that. Okay. Paradox Sports is a great example. They've got their trailer. They just threw in some gear onto that as well. So it was a really great way for them to reach back out to their donor base.
Yeah. So they get people originally coming in just for the trailer, and then they add, I don't know, a fly fishing kit or whatever makes sense for them. They're a climbing organization. So maybe a rack and a rope, and then reach back out to the people who've already participated and say, hey, this got even better. Do you want to kick back in?
Yeah, exactly. We see a lot of success with that. And that's sweetening the grand place prize.
That's awesome. I love the idea of being able to kind of go back to that well. And particularly when you have someone who's bought into, even if they've given $25 for, I don't know, I guess different sweepstakes have different ticket allotments per donation, right?
Yes.
So, let's just say it's $25 for 25 tickets, and then they up the prize or get people excited. I mean, it's like that eBay model, right? Where one of the most brilliant things that eBay did was call it winning something, because it taps into that part of our brains where at the end we're like, well, I've already given 25, but if I can, I'll get 10 more and that'll up my chances.
Yeah. Oh, exactly, Stu. These contests snowball. And so we see this every time that towards the end of the campaign, more and more donations are going to come in, and they're going to get bigger and bigger. I mean, some of these contests, especially our bigger ones, they really take on a life of their own because of just that, because of what you were explaining. Talking about. It just gets so exciting. These are fun. It's so fun. It's so fun to hear a nonprofit talk about the experience of giving away an amazing trip, or giving away a side-by-side. Like that, really, it's fun for everybody.
Are there any tools that nonprofits can use on their site or that are included in the TapCat platform that do countdowns or anything fun like that give people, kind of create that enthusiasm and excitement towards the end of a campaign?
Yeah, we do. So on the campaign page, we'll put a countdown timer when it comes to 30 days. So they'll have like
Okay.
a 20 day, 19 days left. And then we also do we have a presentation. So if a nonprofit's hosting an event, or if even somebody just sitting at home, they can click on the presentation and they can watch the numbers being drawn through our random number generator. And so
Oh, that's
that's really
awesome.
fun to see. Yeah, it feels like when you're pulling a slot at a slot machine, kind of a really cool display that shows up for the donors to be able to watch the drawing.
Okay, cool. So TapCat runs all that process. The nonprofits don't have to take care of any of that stuff. That's great.
Yeah, all they have to do is push a button and that'll draw the winner for them at the end of the campaign. So it's as
That's
simple as
awesome.
that.
That's fantastic. I love it. Well, this has been super fun, and I'm really excited to have spoken with you today and to learn more about this great system. Where can people find out more about TapCat?
Yeah, so visit our website. It's tapcat.com, and we are TAPKAT.com. And even though we have cat in the name, we are all dog people, but we do not discriminate against cat people like you, Stu. I know you're a cat guy.
Well, we have dogs and cats, and fortunately, they all behave today, which
That's
is
good.
which is
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah, my dog didn't shake her head or start running around either. So that's always a good day.
That's great. Well, I really had a great time talking with you today, Annie. One of the things I love to do at the end of all of my shows is not just have it end with a conversation, but have it end with an action item, because I really want people to take action and go out and do something to make the world a better place, or just have fun or relax or whatever it is that they want to do. So after listening to the show today, what would you want our listeners to do?
Oh, well, I know what I'm going to do. So I'm going to tell listeners to go do this. Go eat a delicious snack.
That sounds like a good plan. I think I'm going to go join you.
Yeah.
Awesome. So go eat a snack, go check out tapcat.com and see if sweepstakes might be good for your organization. I'm excited to see if we can get one off the ground and running for Netherland Area Trails Organization this year. So I'm sure we'll be back in touch soon.
Yeah, great. Well, thank you so much, Stu.
Thanks, Annie. Have a great day.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.
All right, there you have it. Another great episode of Relish This. Thanks for listening. If you would like to learn more about how to apply the audience engagement cycle to expand your organization's mission, there are two things you can do. Right now, you can go to missionuncomfortablebook.com to download a copy of my book. And while you're there, you can get your purpose-driven marketing score to see where you can unearth some gold for your organization. If you'd like to listen to back episodes of the show or sign up to be a guest, go to relishstudio.com/podcast. That's it for this week. I'll be back next week for another great episode of Relish This.